This story is called The Princess and the Platinum Card. A buddy of mine was the marketing manager on the launch of American Express's Platinum Card years ago. But they did this segmentation. They said, this is for high net worth individuals.
Right.
It's a prestige product. So my friend was sitting in his office one day and he got a call, an aide to this princess who was at Tiffany's in Manhattan somewhere at a location. Platinum card wasn't working for some, $200,000 jewelry purchase. Studies show that people who read to their children from a very young age, those kids are going to grow up liking reading. They're going to be lifelong learners. They're going to be more curious. Most people are willing to help you out if you just ask. That's an important skill to learn for students right out of the gate. When you're in college, people, advice is free.
One of the things that I learned, it's a battle between you and yourself. So when you can overcome that battle, when you can overcome that, self-doubt, and when you can overcome that, comfortable zone that you are in and come out of it, and you go and ask for help, the world opens up.
By the time someone's 18 years old, their brain is pretty wired for how they're going to be when they're 40 or 50 in terms of personality and whether they're an introvert or extrovert. Actually, this is the thing that university, I tell my students, this is a safe place. There's no judging other than the grades.
Yep.
When you're in a meeting in a company, whether it's a big company or small company, you're sitting at a table with your boss and the boss's boss, you're being judged. Is this person going to contribute? And if you're afraid to say anything because for whatever reason, you're missing opportunities. People don't leave bad companies. They leave bad bosses.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the very first podcast. Our first guest is Thomas Woodside. He's currently a professor of marketing at Eisenberg School of Management, UMass Amherst. Before that, he has been involved in various influential marketing positions at different renowned companies, to name a few: Disney, Kraft Foods, Bath and Body Works. And apart from all of that, he has been involved in the consulting space and the startup space. In this podcast, we talk a lot about business. We talk about a lot of concepts and a lot of things that surround the entire business ecosystem. With that being said, thank you guys for taking the time, and I really hope you guys take something out of this pod. First show, how you feeling? Our first guest.
This is great. This is a maiden voyage, right?
Well, we started this show. It's mostly where I invite guests, I think, who can put up a valuable lesson, who can share their knowledge, their experience of being in different fields. And obviously, I've had a history with you. I've been your TA. I've seen how you are as a professor in the marketing department at Eisenberg. And but before we go into that, I just want to start with you. If you could give a brief introduction of who you are, your educational background, and how everything came into place now.
Sure. So I'm Professor Woodside here at Eisenberg. And so I've been at Eisenberg for a couple of years now. This is my second year teaching in marketing. And prior to that, I was teaching at another university in Massachusetts for about 7 years, and so my career is in corporate, marketing
Right.
and management. That's what I spent my time.
Right.
And so this shift was just 7 or 8 years ago when I started teaching. And so for me, it's great to give back to students, and my philosophy is, teach at the intersection of theory and practice.
Right.
So it's not just all about theory, and students can actually learn something useful.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that, more about
Yeah.
how learning has changed and what students, we're trying to do to get students to understand and be curious.
Yeah.
So my background though, I started out in marketing, right out of graduate school. I did an undergraduate at University of Wisconsin in communications and marketing and advertising, and then moved into a graduate program at University of Illinois in advertising management.
Yeah.
And started working for companies out of graduate school.
Going back, like just a step backwards, when we were growing up, all of us have that notion that what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Especially me coming from a South Asian background. We have that sort of pressure, that do you want to go into science? Do you want to go into commerce? Usually the students who are a bit smarter, they go into science, and usually the leftovers, usually we usually shift to business. That's the usual trend back home. And usually what happens is when we get into class 10, which is known as the IGCSE exams, the O levels back home, where we follow the British curriculum. Usually people choose that sort of, they go into science or they go into commerce. And I just wanted to ask you that, was there a specific time when you knew that, okay, marketing is something which clicked with you? Or was it just like you started off and then you started exploring and then you just, before you went into university, you just figured it out?
That's a great question. I mean, there's a sort that goes on for all students, and I think
Yeah.
in your country and many countries around the world
Yeah.
that have large populations, and there's just a limit, even here in the U.S., of how many people can be admitted to universities and how many people want to go to university.
Yeah.
And then based on where you are. But for me, I did the sort of different way. I mean, as a youth, I grew up with a paper route, and I grew up doing some other entrepreneurial things. But I also really from an early age had an interest in science and thought I would go into medicine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have an uncle
Medicine.
who's a surgeon, and so he influenced a lot of the kids in the various families
Okay.
in my amongst my relatives. So I started out my first 2 years taking a lot of pre-med courses.
Mm.
And a friend of mine, a roommate of mine, said, "Hey, you should try this course with this professor." And named Dennis Corrigan. He's an advertising professor. He's
still
just
remember his
great.
name.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, he became a mentor of mine.
Wow.
So I took a course with him and said, "This is way more fun than
Yeah.
the science courses." But I
Yeah.
still liked science. I like the kind of the science behind medicine, where it's an art, but it's a science.
Right.
Marketing is an art and a science as well. So for
Exactly.
me, I just got into it. I started participating in clubs and competitions, and it just became forward progress, where you get excited about something. You find someone as a mentor in this professor that I had,
Yeah.
and things started falling into place in my sophomore year.
I'll definitely go into marketing a bit more. However, I just want to talk about your university days.
Yeah.
Nowadays, college, I feel like college nowadays and college back in your days, the experience must be very different because I feel like nowadays, especially if I talk about myself and my friends in my batch, when we're coming into college, we have this notion that, right after college, we're going to graduate, we're going to have a 100K job, we're going to have a house, maybe we're going to have, a BMW M4, like we're going to be set. Like, however, that's really not the case. And a lot of people come into college being pressurized by their parents. They don't want to have that college experience because maybe they are successful, doing some entrepreneurial activities besides their college. I know my friend Omar's brother. He has great entrepreneurial skills. He flips a lot of things and makes very good, money out of it. And what's your take on this? Like, what do you think college experience nowadays versus college back in your days was? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the experience of my day
Yeah.
versus your day is very similar in many ways.
Okay.
I mean, things haven't changed that much.
Yeah.
Where for me, but it depends on your background. So, I mean, I came from a background where my parents didn't go to college,
Right.
and we had a large family, and I was striving to be something and make something for myself, and I had this entrepreneurial drive, so
Yeah.
I wanted to, do something.
Yeah.
I think that today kids have more pressure because if their parents are professional, that's one cohort of students where there's a higher level of expectation, because in America, just like in other countries, families want their kids to do better than they did.
Right.
I say that families want their kids to do better than they did. So if a parent's already at an apex at a high level of professionalism,
Yeah.
is there anywhere else to go beyond that? So there's
Yeah.
pressure for the child there, or the student, and for others, for families where there's a first generation student going to college, it might be the pressure of, hey, you're our hope
Yeah.
for this next, for our family. So there's
Yeah.
pressure there, I think, for that student in that situation as well. And then there's a bunch of other students
Yeah.
where they're just like, I don't even know I'm here.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a story.
here
So
for the
when I was teaching my first or second semester,
Yeah.
I had a number of students that were just sitting there in class with their hats on backwards, not paying attention. And I'm trying to get people engaged, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And one of my best students came up to me after, and we walked around campus talking, and he said, a lot of these kids shouldn't even be here, but their parents are making them go to college.
Hmm.
And, that really struck me because there's lots of ways to make a living in this world. You can become a tradesperson.
Hmm.
An electrician and a plumber in America can make $200,000 a year.
100%.
That's more than a lot of college students will ever make,
Yep.
even at the peak of their career as a mid-level manager. And they have a lot more freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's lots of ways you could be an entrepreneur, and I think increasingly many companies are learning in certain fields, maybe more than others, that you don't have to go to college.
Yep.
You can go to an accreditation program, a 2-year program. You can learn some skill that you need, say coding. I'm thinking of computer science and whatnot, where there's maybe more jobs. Companies are hiring people out of technical schools,
Yeah.
like 2-year programs and so forth. So there, I think there's a rethinking of what's needed uh, to, have a professional, life, and versus going to college or having a career of some sort that, doesn't involve going to college. That
Yeah.
said, I mean, because I went and you're a student here, there's nothing like going away for 4 years, or maybe you're on the 5-year program or whatever you're
Yeah.
on, to learn and be curious and make friends that will be with you for life. This is this idea of going away, which
Yeah.
is why college started. And, it's this time to really figure out who you are and what you want to become and what you want to do with your life. Not everyone figures it out in 4 or 5 years, but that's the whole idea.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're a parent, and we've talked a bunch of times. You've told me about your kids, and from a parent perspective, do you think certain upbringing and certain sort of, having if a child has a certain sort of childhood, it helps them with that sort of drive when they're coming into college? Do you think that has an impact on them? Like when you're coming to college from, let's say, background where maybe your parents have not gone to college, you're more grateful. You come in with that expectation that I have that sort of baggage on my shoulders to carry my family forward or carry that legacy forward. However, maybe this is definitely not the case for everyone, but maybe if some people are coming from more of a privileged background, they come in with that sort of expectation that it's just 4 years of fun. Maybe just let's just go enjoy. We're in the U.S. or wherever we are, and it's just overall, an experience as a whole.
Yeah,
What do you think about
I think that can be the case where
Yeah.
there's, but it can also be an individualized situation. I think
Hmm.
that's the challenge for educators and for mentors here, like myself,
Yeah.
to work with students to find out, hey, where are you at?
Right.
What are you interested in? And why are you here? Do you know why you're here?
Yeah.
And if you don't, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because when you're 18 or 19, you're still like trying to figure things out. I mean,
Yeah.
heck, some people when they're 40 are still trying to figure things out.
Hmm.
So but I think part of it depends on the expectations, like I said, that you have when you're growing up, and what kind of family situation you have, and whether you're interested in studying. I
Yeah.
mean, from an early age, I was interested in reading. And so I like
Like
books,
reading books.
and I like ideas.
Nice.
Other family members I have, they didn't so much like books, but they're doing other things. They work in a trade, or they started a bit different kind of business or whatever. But so I think it depends on, just how you're wired
Yeah.
and the influences you have growing up. If your parents read to you starting when you were a little baby,
Yeah.
studies show that people who read to their children from a very young age, those kids are going to grow up liking reading. They're going to be lifelong learners. They're going to be more curious. So there's, in this country and in other countries, there's a lot of energy being put into childhood literacy and reading from an early age.
And having a mentor in college, like the point that you just touched on, I think it's a very big it has a very big impact on what your end goal is, or what your end goal, or what you end up being. Because when I came to US to study, and being here all by myself, I had no friends coming in. I did not come in with any friends from back home. I did not have any friends anywhere, like maybe within 500 miles of Amherst, right? um, what I did have was a mentor at UMass, and it was from my business rap program that I was part of. And I used to meet that professor very often. His name is Professor Jeffrey Clark. And he told me a lot of things. He taught me a lot of things without even teaching me. And it was like the lessons that he used to give, and some of the things that I used to learn from him, pick on from him, were, I think, helped me a lot in getting that vision and knowing that, maybe down the line, even though I'm a freshman, I do want to do something in my life. I do want to step up and, take responsibility and all that. So definitely having a mentor, I think, helps a lot. Um, do you think in career transition, and especially when you are starting off your career, I know you started off and you've worked for very big companies, and don't want to name them. I want to give you the spotlight to name all the companies. But do you think when you're starting off, you're in the early career phase, you're going into corporate, you just graduated, you're a fresh graduate, you go into corporate, you join your dream job or whatever you want, and you're happy there, does the journey of having a mentor end over there? Or should you have a mentor who is bigger than whatever your dreams are? And it's like more like a lifelong mentor.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think there's a growing trend today for
Yeah.
this notion of a life coach,
Right.
where it's not just a point in your life, but it's someone who can help you with a big picture. And sometimes we find those life coaches in partners that we have. Sometimes you find those coaches in a best friend or an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent. It just depends on your situation. But the trend now is for external paid life coaches to help navigate folks in their career and life. And but it could be different for everyone. Personally, my mentor that I met in college, I stayed in touch with that person for many, many years throughout my career, and they
That's
evolved.
rare.
Yeah, and so we had a really good relationship, and it wasn't so much saying, "Hey, here's what you should do," but I also was able to find mentors in companies that I went to work for,
Okay.
and I listened to them and observed what they did so that I could uh, you know kind of figure out how I could be more, not more like them, but be learn from them so I could be successful like them.
Hmm.
That's an important skill that students can learn by studying what others do, and and asking for help. I think what
Yeah.
the main thing that I learned is that most people are willing to pay it forward. They're willing to help you out if you
Exactly.
just ask. You just ask, say, "Hey, I need help," or "What do you think about this?" Or use them as a sounding board. And
Yeah.
so I think that's an important skill to learn for students right out of the gate. When you're in college, people, advice is free.
Yeah.
So, might not be the best advice you'll ever receive, but ask, and you can ask multiple people, so you get a range of opinions. And it's interesting in management. There have been studies of decision making, and if you look at the most successful people in all kinds of fields, they ask others' opinions
Mhm.
before they make a decision, right? They're in a way, it's mentorship, but it's getting input from folks
Yeah.
because it helps them figure out, maybe they think they know what the right direction is, but it's a reality check at sometimes.
Yeah. And then, you know, um, talking about certain things, I think becomes difficult when you come to college. For example, asking for help. I think a lot of students, when you're in college, you're a bit shy, and especially I think if you are an introvert, it becomes a bit tough. You know, I don't know if you would believe it or not. I am an introvert. I grew up as a very shy individual. I still am. I don't know how I'm doing this. It's just like I like to push myself out of that comfortable zone that I am in, and I think it has landed me in some good places, maybe most of the times. And one of the things that I learned, or I would say that I discovered throughout this 4 years that I've been in the U.S., I've been in college, um, is the fact that it's your it's a battle between you and yourself. So when you can overcome that battle, when you can overcome that, self-doubt, and when you can overcome that, comfortable zone that you are in and come out of it, and you go and ask for help, the world opens up. Everything opens up so nicely. It just becomes extremely, like, you don't even believe it that this is what's happening. What do you think about, like, students having, being in college and taking up opportunities? What do you think that they should do when they are in college? Maybe some of the best practices you think
Yeah.
that might break up that ice.
Well, let me answer. Let me address what you said about this notion of personality types first, and
Yeah.
then because I think one of the things that I recommend for students to do is to get to know themselves. We don't always know this, and maybe didn't have the tools in high school, probably not. But students should, at Eisenberg or whatever university you're at, go to your career center and ask them to give you some what are called personality tests.
Okay.
There's a test called the Myers-Briggs indicator.
I've heard of it.
Myers-Briggs indicator. Okay, and it gives you an idea of if you're an extrovert or an introvert, and if you are an extrovert, where are you on the scale of super extroverted or super introverted?
Yeah.
We're usually on a scale, and it also helps for people to understand other character types that they fall into. So I won't go into the whole Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
You can maybe do a
Yeah.
separate podcast on that, but it will help people to understand like who they are. And guess what? By the time someone's 18 years old,
Mhm.
their brain is pretty wired for how they're going to be when they're 40 or 50 in terms of personality and whether they're an introvert or extrovert. Actually, it has to do with birth order, usually in a family, but that's another topic. So what I would say is, introverts versus extroverts, you use the skills that you have
Yeah.
to the best of your ability. And so I think that, friends of mine, I'm more of an extrovert, but friends of mine who are introverts, they find it really hard, as you just explained, to, speak out in a group or share their ideas. But what they do is they practice it. And this is the thing that university helps students do, because this is a safe place.
Right.
I tell my students, this is a safe place. There's no judging other than the grades.
Yeah.
But in class discussions, there's no bad ideas. Let's just have a discussion. Get comfortable, because guess what? When you're in a meeting in a company, whether it's a big company or a small company, you're sitting at a table with your boss and the boss's boss, you're being judged. Is this person going to contribute? And if you're afraid to say anything because for whatever reason, you're missing opportunities. So, try to just put yourself out there. What introverts end up doing is they might have to go stand in a closet for 15 minutes
Yeah.
to chill out, or they go home and they're exhausted because they were putting themselves out there. I once worked at Disney. I worked for Disney for a while with a corporate trainer, and she was giving presentations. She said, I'm an introvert. She said, this is not who I am, but I have to do this as part of my job.
Yeah.
I go home and I completely chill out.
Mhm.
I have to stand in a dark room for 10 minutes
Yeah.
to adjust. One of the U.S. presidents, John F. Kennedy, once said that before he would go into a big speech, he would actually go into a coat closet, close the door,
Sweet.
and just completely, get in the zone,
Yeah.
to be able to, be out there and put himself out there. And, some people are terribly nervous. And, but I think that, it's just a matter of practice and taking these small baby steps to trying some things. I was telling students at a meeting we had for new career or new marketing majors just 2 nights ago, I said, put yourself out there, stretch yourself just a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't have to stretch yourself this much, just go this much with something that you're a little bit uncomfortable with, and do that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. Because what is the saying? If you do something, 100 or 1,000 times, you become an expert at it. And so, you set these micro goals to get yourself to the next place.
For you, what do you think marketing is? What is marketing?
Yeah, marketing is, about, how do we help people to understand either something they need, what are the options, how do we create this, new product or a new idea, and how do we get people to be interested in it? I think that's at the crux of it. It could be a product, it could be a service, and in communism, there's no choice.
Yep.
And economies that are not capitalist like China, where there's communism, but capitalism. But say in the former Soviet Union, you went to a government store and you didn't have much choice. I have friends whose parents grew up in the Soviet Union and they didn't have any choice. So marketers, in countries that have capitalistic markets, marketing came to being to help these companies, produce and sell these products and create a point of differentiation amongst many choices, right? And so now we see in many product categories and service categories that there are so many choices, and without marketing tools and segmentation and different media choices, how would consumers even be able to figure out what options are right for them? How would they even learn about it? So marketing plays a pivotal role in those kinds of decisions. It also plays a pivotal role in non-consumer or business to business, which say healthcare or nonprofit work, where you're trying to get people to do something like get a shot. It's flu season here in the United States. It's COVID is still running around. So how do we get people and convince them to do something that they might not think they should do for whatever reason? And so I think, types of marketing, in fact, marketing communications and other tools that come from the social sciences can be used to influence people and, for public health, for example.
There's this saying, I've seen it in a couple of movies. I've seen it in a lot of, business coach or business podcasts talk about it. And it is that one of the greatest skill a man or woman can have is the art of selling. If you can sell,
The art of selling.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you can sell, the world is yours to conquer. And, I wanted to ask, from your point of view, how can you sell? How do you become good at selling?
Yeah, I have this phrase where it's called ABS, always be selling. And so,
Okay.
if you think about yourself as a brand,
Right.
students, think about yourself as a brand.
Right.
And, you've got to develop the brand, think about the 4 Ps. What's your product? How, your price, promotion and distribution. And so if you think about yourself as a brand, build a marketing plan for yourself, really. And part of that marketing plan is promotion, and sales fits under the promotion P. So I think that, students, no matter what your job is, so let's say that you're a student and you go into accounting.
Yep.
Well, I'm never going to sell, right? Guess what? You're going to sell yourself to
Exactly.
your clients. If you become, in management and you stay with the accounting firm, for example, if you work for a service firm, the firm wouldn't exist without clients. So someone's selling their services to clients who hire accounting firms, just as an example. So, you're selling, you're working at a client, doing an audit.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to make sure that you're selling what your firm is all about so that they like what you're doing and they keep the firm
Business.
in business. Yeah. But it's different. I mean, some people are, salespeople, and
Right.
that's what they want to do for their life. Other people are marketing or finance or whatever your job is. I'm just saying that, there's an element of sales and learning how to, network with people. You know, there's sales training course you can get so you can learn how to, ask the right questions,
Right.
open-ended questions, play back things to people. So there's a whole, I would advise students to, there's online free sales training courses. Take one of those courses, do it online in a couple hours. You can learn the basics.
Can someone become a salesperson? Like, can they be trained to do it, or is it something that is inherently with you? So, is it a skill that you can develop? Like something maybe you can learn, or you can train over the years and become good at selling? Or is it something that you either hit or miss? You're born with it.
It's a great question. I mean, there are certainly people that are more kind of cut out of the sales cloth
Right.
for whatever reason. Maybe they observed family members. Maybe they've observed people who are great salespeople when they're growing up as a kid, and they said, "Wow, this looks like a great field." And you can just watch people and watch what they do and learn how to be a good salesperson. Maybe you have an early job where you are selling. Work in a retail store or something, and you get exposed to it. So I think there's one, think about the Myers-Briggs, more extroverted, um, and sort of certain personality traits that maybe are more aligned with salespeople who are more successful and people who want to go into sales as a career. But that's not to say that other people can't learn sales techniques. It just might be, so let's just take a person who's really introverted. They could learn the sales techniques, but it's really hard for them. They don't want to get on the phone and make those cold calls. They don't go knocking on doors. It just depends what your sales role is. That would be really hard, but they might be really good at sales servicing, for example.
What is that?
So once the person makes the sale, how do you customer service aspects to keeping the relationship going? And there's sales involved in that. There would be add-ons or other kinds of things. Much of the sales process today is done digitally, and so there's people in roles with digital marketing and digital technology tools and CRM tools that can be used to continue the sales process without even having a face-to-face with a client.
In my country, Bangladesh, and a lot of South Asian countries, India, Pakistan, the economy is not performing as well, maybe as it should, right? There's a lot of unemployment. However, there's a lot of young people who are very ambitious. They are very driven and they are very well connected to the global world. They're connected with the internet, they have access to internet, they have access to different forms of resources. One of the tools in the last couple of years that really came up was freelancing, right? People marketing, people selling their services, be it, video editing, be it being a virtual assistant, being, I'll edit your photos, I'll maybe fix your audios and all of that. Um, they're doing that sort of freelancing. However, one thing I've noticed is the fact that even though they are very well skilled, they are like their work quality maybe even is better than someone who's charging maybe $1,000 an hour and they are giving you that same service for $10 an hour. Even though their work quality is very good, they are unable to grab that sort of client base or have that sort of customer retention that they should. And from my perspective and my limited knowledge, what I understood was them not being able to market themselves, not being able to build that sort of personal brand. What do you think, like some of the best tips or some of the best practices one can kind of follow or one can kind of go through in order to build that sort of personal brand, that sort of personal marketing, and that sort of even client retention?
Well, I think this is a trend that's been happening worldwide, this notion of the gig economy.
Right.
And so I think there's tremendous opportunities, especially in developing countries where, the US was a developing country at one time, and there were people that came as immigrants from all over the world here and became business people, set up shops and whatever. And they, and so but now we have these digital tools to enable, people to, have force multipliers in terms of reaching people. So if you're just use it, a friend of mine has a business and he uses a firm I think in India to do, or a freelancer in India actually, to do backlinking for his SEO on his website. He's a consultant. And so, he found a person on a, freelance platform, and this person's been doing the work for him. And he didn't know this person from anyone. Somehow, this person popped up on the platform. So I think that, using these digital platforms, there's a lot of people you're competing with, but there's a lot of work out there. People are looking for, companies and individuals or entrepreneurs or whomever are looking for, labor to help with things that they need to get done. I think that, if you start at the beginning, which is develop a brand statement, develop, your business plan.
Yeah.
Part of your business plan is going to be, how am I going to market myself? How am I going to
The
capture
USP.
clients? Yeah, your USP. You have
Yeah.
to develop a business plan for yourself, just like you would for a product. And for students who don't know how to develop a business plan, there are books on it. There are lots of training online to figure out how to create a business plan. It's not super complicated. You don't have to go to college to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Other people are just, they're just entrepreneurs. They say, I don't need to write a business plan. I just know what I'm going to do, and they just
Right.
do it. Yep. Some people are like that.
Right.
Other people need to have a more structured approach and
Mhm.
write a, 5 to 10 page business plan.
Yeah.
And then, that's your starting point. It's going to evolve,
Hmm.
but it's, hey, at least I have a place to start,
Hmm.
to know, what I have to do. And that, includes, how are you going to promote yourself?
Yeah.
How are you going to retain customers? And the other piece that you mentioned about, how do I retain customers? It's just, building the relationship. I think that's a big
Right.
piece of it. If you do great work and you build a relationship, you're going to retain customers. There's this notion of retention marketing has been
Yeah.
around for a while, and it's a question of the best companies, don't have a lot of attrition, whether it's a personal services business or consumer products or whatever. It's the same theory is in play, which is, there's going to be customer defection,
Hmm.
but your goal, your job is to minimize the defection, find out what your customers want and make sure you fulfill their needs and exceed their needs, actually.
Product and services, two types of, you know,
Yeah.
things. And I know you've been in some very big name companies actually, and I just wanted to hear from you what what are some of the products and services that maybe you have developed over the couple of years. Definitely, marketing plays a lot of back end and even front end role in making sure that whatever product or service you develop becomes successful. But I also want to know that when you are developing a specific line of product and service, like you have done, what are some of the thoughts and what are some of the things that you keep in mind to make sure that whatever you are doing becomes successful?
Yeah, I'll use an example. So one of the jobs I had was I was an early member of the Disney Vacation Club
Right.
in Orlando, Florida. So it was Disney's foray into timeshare business. And if you know anything about timeshare, it's pre-Disney, it wasn't a pleasant thing to go in as a customer or a prospect to a timeshare presentation. What usually happened was that you and your family would sit in a room and a salesperson would beat on you for 2 to 5 hours until you bought. And so, you walk out of there 10 to 20 to $50,000 later, and you have a week or two somewhere in the world you have to go back every year. It's not,
Mhm.
most people don't go back to the same place every
Yeah.
year. So Disney created this product, and I was part of the development process where we said, what do people really want? So we did a lot of customer insight work to understand, A, they love the Disney brand. That's great. It stands for high quality and these other things, family and values. But what do people want in this product? And so what we heard is they want flexibility. They want to be able to go to different places and trade and have all of these opportunities. They want to feel like they're not pressured into buying. So, we listened a lot, and then we created this product, which was around points. Instead of buying weeks, you buy points, and you can use your points to purchase time at different Disney resorts or trade it through a high quality exchange program to stay at other places in other parts of the world, right? And so it became very popular, and certainly the Disney files, the people who love Disney and would go to the parks all the time, they bought without even, it
Thinking
was like
about it.
hands up. Salespeople were making money hand over fist because
Yeah.
they were commissioned, partly commissioned. The second year was more difficult because we skimmed the Disney files off, but the product was so strong that even people who said, we love it, we just can't afford it yet, they came back a year or two later, and we would keep them in our files and then remarket to them, as, a hot prospect essentially. And, we had high rates of sales, conversion for those folks. So, I think the point is the product has to be high quality. It needs to be something that, you get consumer feedback. That doesn't always make it successful. There's lots of examples where people have gone through that rigorous process in designing a product or service and it fails for other reasons. But I think by and large, if you do your homework first and you do, get out of the office and talk to your potential customers and ask them, what they're looking for. You don't necessarily even have to talk about the product, which we didn't. We just asked people like, how do you vacation? what kinds of, what does your family like to do? And so we learned about the kinds of things that they like to do. And then we built this vacation product around that.
Did
That's
Disney
pretty
give you
cool.
a free lifetime pass for that or not?
Well, in the early days, there was actually. And
Oh,
so
really?
it's an interesting because that's one of the things
I
people
know
said.
American Express
We like to go to the
American
parks.
Airlines
And
or
so we
something.
included tickets forever as long as
Wow.
the timeshare product lasted. Okay, so it was like a 99-year product.
Mm.
That became a very expensive proposition. And, maybe 8 or 9 years into the vacation club, they started phasing out that free ticket
Yeah.
and built it as an add-on that you could buy in addition to the base price of the real estate transaction.
If we go through the product life cycle, right? Of course, the product is planned out, it is launched, let's say it is marketed very well, it's successful. However, do you think the role stops there? Like once the product is out or the service is out, does the role of marketing stop there? I ask you this question because I know you have a very interesting story for this Amex and this princess coming in. I would love for you to share that on our podcast because I'll let you go first and then I'll tell you why I like that
Yeah,
story.
so this story is called The Princess and the Platinum Card. And
I loved it.
it's unbelievable. So well, I'll tell the story and then we can talk about what it means. So a buddy of mine was the marketing manager on the launch of American Express's Platinum Card years ago. And it was this new concept, which, it had a lot of benefits. There's a high price to the card, and it was
Was it
marketed.
very high back then as well?
Yeah, it was
Because
very high back
right
then as
now it's
well.
about 700
Well,
for the year.
I think it was maybe 400 when it launched, something like
Yeah.
that. But they did this segmentation. They said this is for high net worth individuals,
Right.
who, we're going to have no limit on what they can spend,
Mhm.
and it's a prestige product.
Status.
So the design of the card, the platinum, the feel of it is, and American Express is, their whole marketing pitches, there's a lot of exclusivity behind American Express. So, and so they had done a lot of legwork, they meaning American Express, with, merchants, making sure that they would represent the brand properly when someone presented the platinum card, that
Yep.
they would know that this is a special customer and treat them with,
Respect.
high customer service, right? Well, that's not going to happen across the board. So the Princess and the Platinum Card, my friend was sitting in his office one day and he got a call, and it was from an aide to this princess who was at Tiffany's in Manhattan somewhere at a location, and her platinum card wasn't working for some, $200,000 jewelry purchase that she was making.
Wow.
And they were yelling. There was, a lot of words flying that I can't repeat on this podcast. And so immediately,
Yeah.
my friend dispatched himself and three of his assistants in a car. They called the car immediately. Their admin called the car right out front of Amex. They said, "We're raced to this Tiffany's location," and took care of the thing personally. I mean, this wouldn't happen. You could never do this because, but they wanted, they said, "Hey, this is a viral moment. This is before digital was a thing," because it's going to be, this person's going to tell her friends.
Yeah.
And they ended up using her in some advertising pieces about customer service and told a similar story, apparently. But I think that the point of the story is that customer service is so important. And they didn't have, even though they didn't, for some reason, there was, I think it was a systems glitch, which her, account wasn't registering in the computer system as having this unlimited balance in it, for whatever reason. It was solved, and she was able to make the purchase. But, if you asked her what happened, she probably felt embarrassed and
Yeah.
was used to not having anyone question her because of her stature, being of royalty in whatever country she was from. And so, this was a real issue for American Express and could have been a public relations nightmare during the launch of this card.
I think it also plays it shows a very strong side of acting fast.
Yeah.
I think nowadays, even back, before and even now, I think now especially, the world advances so fast, especially with the introduction of social media into the whole marketing scene, not just marketing, but like everything else.
TikTok, Instagram
Mhm.
Reels, Facebook. I know Facebook is not big over here, but like back home, Facebook is a thing.
It's the
Like
thing.
it's everyone has it, and regardless of your age, everyone uses Facebook a lot. Marketing on Facebook goes crazy, and the reason why I wanted to ask you this is social media coming into marketing now, and back when you were in marketing, the industry itself. Do you see a change that maybe acts as a threat for individuals who are going into the marketing industry as a whole? It's kind of like AI in, I would say, in my field, accounting. There's a lot of speculations that AI is going to take over accounting. Accountants are going to go out of job. But in reality, like we are needed more than ever. Like there's a shortage of accountants, and accounting majors are, getting hired from their freshman year, if I'm not wrong. But so just going back to that, what do you think?
It's a great question. I mean, there's no question that technology at any point in time in human history creates disruptions in the job market. Okay, so social media as a tool will certainly, it's actually created more jobs. Let's start there, because you need people who can run these platforms.
Yeah.
I think the bigger question, which you brought up, is AI. How is AI going to change marketing, and will it, reduce the need for as many people? And the answer is probably yes. It's going to, I think, and it already has,
Mhm.
reduced the need for as many people as, were in the field in certain areas of the field, because if you get a machine to do it, you don't need to pay someone to do it, right?
Yeah.
But that said, it's going to create more jobs as well. Other jobs that we can't even imagine sitting here right now, that people, because part of what I think the biggest need for marketing, or people who want to hire a marketing function or have a marketing function in their company, is creativity.
Yeah.
Creativity and analytics. And if because I said earlier, if it's an art and a science.
Yeah.
And so, you know, at least now AI can do some of the analytics, but it's not really good at what humans can do with their brain and thinking about a problem and how to solve a problem with different creative solutions.
I know you brought about a lot of books today. I just wanted to give you
Sure.
what you wanted to share, your
Well, there's
platform.
there's a number of books. Actually, one that goes back to what we were talking. This is a book actually I'm reading now. It's 10 to 25, and this is recommended by the UMass librarians.
Really?
This is a book. It's called The Science of Motivating Young People. And so I'm reading this book now to start to figure out, hey, how can I do things in my class
Yeah.
to break through to young people today? Because, you know, your generation is a digital native generation. You grew up with a phone in your hand, iPad or a computer.
Very short attention span.
Right, very short attention span. So this is, how do we figure things out? And I would say students should read this too. This is a really good book. So
Mhm.
10 to 25, it's by David Yeager, The Science of Motivating Young People. Learn about how your professors might be motivating you.
Mm.
The next book I have is, no matter what you do for your job, strategy is really important. And this is I used to teach a strategy capstone course, and this is one of the best strategy books that I can recommend. It's called Playing to Win: How Strategy Really Works, by AJ Lafley, who was the former CEO and chairman of Procter and Gamble, which is one of the largest consumer products companies in the world. Very successful and very sophisticated company. And Roger Martin, was a dean of management at a school of management. So they wrote this book. I've used this book in my courses, and it has great examples from Procter and Gamble and how they ran their business and different strategy concepts. So I'd highly recommend this. Thinking about what you want to do in your life, there's a great book called Creating the Work You Love by a guy named Rick Jarrow. And this is a book about helping you to figure out what you want to do in life, no matter what stage you're in. You could be just starting out, you could be early career, you could be mid career, you could be, the later chapters in your career. This really helps you lay out kind of chapter by chapter, kind of unpeeling who you are and what you like to do to find something that's really fulfilling. I think one of the things that I talk to students about is They just want to get a job and make, like you said, a lot of,
Right.
you know what? You might hate that job. So figure out if you can when you're young, get to know yourself so
Definitely.
you can figure out, what is that I really like to do?
Don't dive in without knowing.
The money will
whatever.
come. The
Exactly.
money will come. And, unless you're in a field that's a low paying field, but, do what you love to do because life is short and you don't want to wake up someday and go, I hate what I'm doing. In this country, the studies that have been done on working, most people hate their jobs. The other fact that I learned from a really great career coach that I had is that people don't leave bad companies. They leave bad bosses. But I think the generation that you're in and Gen X, they millennials, they don't want to work for bad bosses. They're like, you know what,
Exactly.
I'll do something else.
Yeah. I think nowadays, especially like when you have so much options, when you have so much, even though there is that sort of job, that dream of getting a job, getting a high paying job,
Mm.
if you're treated badly, you're not going to want to stay there.
Of course not.
There's always a backup. And I think that's a great thing for the people in the last few generations. And, coming to the end of this podcast, I wanted to ask you about this one thing. Do you know the term called yap?
No,
It's a Gen Z term.
Okay.
So what it means is that you can talk about anything or any topic that is given to you, right? And the reason why I ask this is because it's like a fun thing that I like to ask people when I meet them or when I talk with them, especially since you are in marketing. I feel like yapping is a skill that yapping, like saying, like when let's say you give me a topic, you tell me to talk about this light, and I go on for 5 minutes, right?
Right.
And I think it's a skill that you can master, and it will take you to places in life that you don't even know.
Sure.
The reason why I say this
I'm
is
familiar with
because
this concept now.
now that's why I had to explain it to you, and I'm saying it because I feel like in marketing, you have to yap. You have to
Sure.
yap all the time. When you're in front of your customer, they ask you something. Maybe you don't know it right off the top of your head. You just have to come up with something. You just have to, you know, say something to make sure you sound confident. You have that belief in your own product. And I have done it a lot of times. Maybe in this podcast, I'm yapping the entire time. I don't know, but I feel like yapping is a skill that, takes you forward. What do you think about yapping?
I think it's great. So I learned about this concept when I was 17 years old. I was riding with my uncle, who's a very successful salesperson. He was a manufacturer's rep, and he and his brother owned their own repping business.
Yeah.
And my uncle John said, "Let me tell you a life lesson here." And he pulled out a pen. He said, "You see this pen?" He said, "I want you to think about this for 5 minutes, and I want you to figure out how to sell me this pen."
Sell me this pen.
Sell me this pen. So I taught a sales course
Iconic.
once, and I had students do it. Sell me this pen. And so they had to write a pitch, impromptu, and I gave them 10 minutes, and then they had to all rotate up in class and sell the pen. Some did better than others, but you know what? They all found something about the pen
Yeah.
that would make me want to buy that pen. And so I think you're right. You need to learn the art of conversation,
Yep.
the art of networking, and but as important is the art of listening. Being able to listen what people are saying versus just talking, and being respectful and understanding what is really needed in the conversation. I have one more book related to that. This is a great book. I've taught ethics courses for a number of years, and this is a book by Mary Gentile. She's a professor, I think at Wharton, perhaps. Giving Voice to Values: How to Speak Your Mind When You Know It's Right.
Mm.
Okay, so this is about ethics, but it has to do with, how do you get people to say something
Yeah.
when they know something needs to be said?
Mm-hmm.
And people have different levels of comfort with being able to bring something up, even if it's a hard conversation. It could be an easy conversation, but this book will help people, if you read it, to practice the ability to say something and to speak up and to be heard.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Um, I don't know. You spoke about having the art of conversation. I don't know how good this was. It's my first time hosting this podcast, but I'll end off. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to end off with one thing. Professor Woodside, sell me this pen.
Saw you this pen. So this is a beautiful pen. It has many features to it. It has a pointed tip so that you can write your name clearly. It doesn't bleed. So unlike other pens in the market that bleed and you can't read your signature, this pen has a specially patented ink that will allow it to adhere to the surface and immediately dry. So you also have no bleed, but you also don't get ink on your hands when you're writing. So I'm a left-handed writer, and so it happens to me. The other thing is that this is made with a sustainable plastic. So this biodegrades. One of the biggest issues with our competitors' pens is that throw it in the trash and it's going to go in a landfill. This actually biodegrades in about 4 years because it's made with a cornstarch. So I think this is a great pen. It's a new product, and I think you'll really enjoy it.
Sold. With that being said, we wrap up the podcast. Thank you guys for being here. And yeah, first show wrapped.
Thank you.